I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Sarah Gardner. I am with the KU Center for Public Partnerships and Research. We support the Children's Cabinet with a number of different initiatives, including the Child Care Capacity Accelerator. I'll be monitoring the chat today and monitoring the waiting room and making sure folks get in. I'll also be putting a few links into the chat to help. And we are recording this session as we do all of the sessions, and we will post the recording on the allinforkansaskids.org website, where all of the other accelerator materials are at. And before I turn it over to Lucas to kick us off and to take your questions, I wanted to mention an add-on initiative that if you visit the Accelerator website, you will see, called the Innovation Communities. It is an add-on to the Accelerator. It's a small amount of dollars for a handful of communities who are interested and able and ready to participate in implementing a couple of different targeted strategies and tactics to support childcare. So we're specifically looking for public-private partnership opportunities, infant and toddler incentives, workforce retention incentives, things like that. So I'm going to put a link in the chat to what that is. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out into the TA portal. Like with anything else, I'm happy to talk through that. And there will be a webinar on that specific opportunity next Wednesday, April 12th. And again, all the information is on the Accelerator website. So it's just an add-on, and it's for anybody who is applying for the Child Care Capacity Accelerator to consider. So with that, many of you are here to hear from Lucas and hopefully get your questions answered. So Lucas, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. And we've set this up to be question and answer. This is our fourth, I believe. The first one I did do maybe a 10-minute intro. So hope you'll take the opportunity to see that if you haven't already. Really want to make myself available to you. Want to encourage you to submit questions through right now live with me, but also through the technical assistance portal through the website. That helps us to track it and to create an FAQ as well. And with that, what questions do you have for me today? We're not so many people that you can't just speak up and ask your question, please.
I know that it mentioned not having extra materials submitted with the grant application, but if you had like extra community support letters, do you want those submitted or just the 3?
Sarah, can we receive them technically?
If you drop it into one PDF, Sarah,
Sure.
you can include more than 3. We just want to see a minimum of 3, but I think the online application has it all as one PDF anyways. So if you have 5 or 6 that you want to include, feel free. It's all in one PDF upload.
Okay, thank you.
Other grants, and get the letters you want to get. Before you would write to Senator Moran or something, I don't know that we're really looking for letters from your community that tell the story about the support in your community. Just as I know other grants have said, please don't ask state office holders. I'm not going to say that necessarily, but really looking for, who is going to sustain this in your community? Who are your, they may not be explicit partners today, but they are people who really could be partners. Your city council, your county commission, among others, are some of the letters that I would really hope to see. I hope that's helpful, not unhelpful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, we are really looking for folks who are making every attempt to make childcare attainable for families, so that not an unwillingness to receive DCF or be on the food program certainly will reduce points on your application. On the food program, we know that depending on sort of your school district or school catchment area, that you just may not be eligible, but certainly looking for a willingness to participate, because those are pieces of making childcare more attainable for families. Another question from the text. I'm curious about the community champion role. Are there specific action items that person will be responsible for? The community champion is my interlocutor. It's the person who's going to be doing the work on the project through to completion. And so it's whoever it's your project manager for the grant through to the end of its life cycle.
And could you go back to what you were talking about an ability to receive DCF children, and then you were talking about something else that it just kind of cut out, so I didn't hear that. Could you address that a little more thoroughly?
Yeah,
please?
sorry. So the question was
right.
DCF and food program. So DCF and CACFP. I know that for CACFP, not all programs are eligible. So that's a wrinkle. We hope that you will investigate whether or not your program is eligible and participate if you're able to. That's I think for most, a lot of programs don't participate. It sure seems to me like that's money you're leaving on the table. It's to participate in CACFP, you have to serve healthy food. Of course, you're accepting somebody's definition of healthy food, but you have to serve healthy food and you get money for that. There's some paperwork, but I would really encourage folks to look at that, and then accepting DCF is a really key part of making childcare attainable for families. I read that grants must result in a net increase in childcare seats. Are those seats for 0 to 5? Yes. Your project can include school-age kids, and that's great. There's a real need, but the threshold for a valid application is increasing seats for children birth to 5.
And the reference in the question about the budget template has a reference to kids in school under age 11. It's because of just wanting to know the full scope of your project. It's not because we are looking to fund school age programs directly. It's just understanding the full comprehensive of licensed programs and what they do.
Carrie, you say you don't qualify for food programs since you don't have 25% of families that qualify. Exactly. We know that not everybody's eligible, and please tell us, hey, we'd love to. We don't qualify. We're not eligible, and that's a data point. But I think just saying, hey, we'd like to participate is helpful for us to know.
So I have a question. We have multiple projects within Reno County that we're going to be submitting together. So would you like the budgets to be collectively together, or would you like a tab within the Excel sheet for each separate project?
So I think, providing that level of detail is helpful. You also need to, and Sarah can stop me, but I think I want to see also it all together in one budget, right? Because that is the application that you're submitting. That is how your application is going to be scored by reviewers. And so while I think it's interesting to see the different pieces broken down, I need to have a master budget that has everything that you're looking to include in the project.
Abby, there is also a tab on the budget narrative, and that might be the place where you can add some clarification about the number side of the budget. You could even say in the salary, this project is taking this percent or this project is taking this percent. If you wanted to add that level of clarity, the budget narrative would be a great place to do that. And if there's not enough space in what is there, certainly reach out and we can make some adjustments to the template to allow you to say what you want to say.
Okay, thank you. I would also say a little bit of clarification on the estimates for the construction projects. Do we have to get several estimates, or is one estimate sufficient for the construction projects?
One estimate is sufficient for your application.
Yes, okay.
Before you would award contracts, your procurement policy should require you to get 3 bids. But for the application, one estimate is really what we're looking for.
Okay. And can you review the awardment of those funds? Is it a reimbursement? Is it a?
It is a reimbursement.
Okay.
It won't be lump sum. Because it's federal funds, there's a degree of accountability that is built in that isn't unlike some other grants that you may receive.
Sure. How often? Monthly?
Monthly is what we've said. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Did I hear you say on the last call that if we submitted early, then you would provide us feedback?
We would certainly attempt to. Yes.
So it's my understanding in the Common App, once you've submitted it, you can't change it. How would you work in that scenario?
Happy to take that one, Lucas.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bonnie, if you did hit the submit button and you wanted us to look at it or Lucas to look at it, then we have the ability to go in and unlock that submission. I think it makes more sense to have what you have in there and ask for some technical assistance and support. So don't think of it as like a review of every question of your grant submission. Think of it as just want to check, how does this kind of meet what you're thinking about, or use it as an opportunity to explain your project in advance and get Lucas's reaction and feedback to that. So my advice is to not hit the submit button and just put a request in the TA portal for some support. And then he can pull up your application and be looking at the same thing that you are looking at when you are asking the questions.
So you can look at it before we submit. Okay. Thank you.
So I had another question come up because one of our projects is not a provider themselves, like they want to build the building and then have a separate provider do the operations of that. But in the application, it states, are they working towards licensure? So how does if the award money for construction goes to this entity that's going to be building the construction of the project, but they are not going to be the operator of that, so they don't need the childcare licensure, how does that work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm understanding the question. I'm wondering how that fits into what we're doing. I understand why you would do it that way. Sarah, do you have thoughts?
Maybe clarify, Abby, are you saying that somebody would be the fiscal agent and manage the construction and somebody else would be the operator? Like,
Yes.
But I'm guessing they're planning on not contracting that until the building's substantially complete, because why would you pay labor when you don't have a space to provide that or are they finding somebody to contract with here pretty quick?
I'm pretty sure they have a good idea who they're going to contract with. I mean, I don't think they have that. And I'm not proposing the funds would be operational funds. It would be construction funds to primarily.
If they know who's going to operate it, I think they want to tie that into the application.
Okay, so we just need to name who that's, proposed to be.
Yeah.
If we can do that.
Yep.
Okay, well, I can work with the group on that.
And I mean, I could understand saying, golly, it's going to take us a year to build this thing. We're not gonna enter into an agreement for another 9 months.
And they may not. I mean, I might not. I may get that response from this group too.
And I think it's okay. It's not. I mean, it's frankly, like candidly, it's a weaker application then, but it makes sense. I know why you would do that, and because you've got this whole consortium effect. I don't know. I understand why you would do it that way. So, and
Okay.
you've just got to tell the story then in the application so that reviewers aren't scratching their heads about it.
Sure, that makes sense. And as the lead applicant of this, does that have to be a 501c3? Can it be a C6? But if it's a C6, it's probably tax versus a C3.
Sarah?
I think Lucas has said this in the past, we're not accountants. If you have a tax liability or you are an organization that carries a tax liability, that this would apply for that. So yes, if you're not a 501c3, then there is likely tax on that. So,
But they technically can apply. C6.
Yes.
Sure. I think I think you want to keep scratching your head on that a little bit, though. If who's the entity that's a C6?
So our application is going to be through the Hutchinson-Reno County Chamber of Commerce, but they have an entity that's a C3 associated with them. So I'll just work with them to get the C3 probably.
I think that makes sense so that you're not. Yeah.
I kind of had the same situation to where I am an owner in, and I already had called and asked you about this question, but I'm an owner in an LLC that owns the real estate and the building. I mean, the building and the land. And then my daycare has a separate LLC that owns the operations. That way it helps me with liability. If I was ever to get sued, they can't go after the building because that's a separate building, but it's the same owner in both entities. So it's a little bit different than what she's talking about, but you had explained that it would still work. Because, yeah.
We're off to a great start. What other questions do you have for me today?
Well, I kind of have probably a strange question, but we had already been working on adding on to the north side and the south side. The north side was going to have some infant toddler rooms, and then the south side was going to have an expansion of one of our other spaces. The thing is, we were holding off on the north side with the infant toddlers because the infant toddlers, as far as revenue wise, pays for the higher wages that we do. It pays for everything. But once you add the bank loan onto that, it now doesn't make it, it barely breaks even. So when this grant came when it came, I was like, oh my gosh, this can help us get these infant toddler spots in the market. But we're to the point of like, we're ready to break ground on the south side. And so it's just like, I don't know if I put the whole project in or I just focus on the north side, even though the south side does include spots, but it's school age spots. And I don't know if I have to wait until the approval process to see if I'm even granted this and put this project on hold until July. So I don't know really how to approach this.
Right. And I think that's a very personal business decision. In terms of what is reimbursable, no activity that's undertaken before an award would be reimbursable.
Okay. Okay. Well, that answered it very, very clearly. Thank you.
Are amounts that we put in prior to the award counted towards our match? So if we're doing work and we do 25% before that,
Yeah, yes. So it kind of depends a little bit on what it is. If it is, if you buy property, and you pay fair market value, that I should be able to consider that as a cash match. If it's you valuing your time, that would be in-kind match.
and how far in advance can we go? Because we bought a property in October, but we're just getting to the part where we're starting our remodel.
If that property is part of this project, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. If somebody has land they've been sitting on for 50 years, that'll be in kind. But if you bought land in the last year and paid fair market value, we should be able to consider that a cash match. Natalie?
Lucas, I'm curious about work that's already been done. So our chamber has paid to get the floor plan, the rendering, some of the submission content that had to be developed from professional services. So the chamber paid for that. Can we count that work that the chamber paid for as a part of our match because it's work done towards getting this project built?
Possibly, and the reason I'm if it kind of specifically on those things where you may or may not have gone through a bid process for design work, best practice with federal grants would be that for match that everything needs to go through a federal compliant procurement policy. So if you did go to bid, that's fantastic, and that could be part of your cash match. If you didn't go to bid, I'd prefer not to have that be your part of your match.
Even if those dollars was through an economic development fund and not that's privately fundraised here in our community, not grant money that went into paying for those services?
It comes down to on a typical federal grant, what you're counting as match should be subject to the same procurement standards as the rest of everything, which is my hesitation. And that's why we so I think it goes back to your procurement policy and whether or not that was followed for design services.
Okay, and then I have another question regarding the match. So we are looking at our staffing model and looking at how we can cost share the expense of the overhead of operations. And so one of the things we're talking about is some of our staff, if they are technically employees of like community foundation, the local tech college, or the local hospital that are helping to run our program, are we able to count those partnerships as part of a match? Because that still makes this project successful. It's just the dollars are coming from other people to staff this program.
Yeah, so that you'll want to be really judicious about how much of their time is actually committed to the childcare project. And so attributing their salaries accordingly. I think it works, but you'll want to be judicious. And I think it, depends on the scale of the project.
Lucas, can I add something?
Yeah, please do, Sarah.
So Natalie, on the match, there's a way to line up your match with the expenses of the project, right? So in the budget template, literally everything you line item out as an expense has the opportunity to be like matched to the match column, to the other source column. So I think, and the formula is built in, so the 10% and 20 and 15%, or the 25% match overall, to meet that threshold, just kind of like look at what you're putting in and make sure that makes sense for the project overall. Like, what are you actually needing to bring this project to light? Is it, to Lucas's point, is that staff really supporting the childcare services, operations? And then just tell us that story in your budget narrative, right? So I don't think it's a cut and dry response, right? It's a little bit more nuanced, and that's why the budget narrative section is there, so you can, make your case. The need for solid procurement policies to be followed is really important because they're federal dollars, and we put a link to what that might look like in the application. So definitely look at that and definitely have that in your mind. But you know what you're getting to make your project come to life, and hopefully you feel like you have space inside that template to do that, and then we'll score it accordingly. Like I don't want to. I'm trying to be diplomatic about our response while also like not saying yes for sure that counts and no for sure that doesn't count, because we just don't know based on the information right now. So use that narrative to tell your story if that helps.
I will say I had a call yesterday, I think. And it was for a large project, a new construction center. And so this isn't going to apply to everyone, but it was a new build center, and they were working on figuring out what they were going to put in to the into that match. But I mean, they still needed, how much did they need then? If they in-kinded and labored and this and that at their match, they were going to need over $3 million from the grant. And so I think you want to be careful that while we, the 25% is really, it's a floor for your match. It is not the ceiling. And as this is a competitive grant, it's a statewide competitive grant, you want to make sure that you're able to tell us how your project gets built if we only are able to do $2 million. $2 million is not a cap for us, but I think you want to be be careful that you're telling a story about about everything that you're bringing to the project, and that the project can be finished, depending on the size of the grant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Lucas, I think we'll be just fine on the match portion. But it's just a matter of being able to document all the efforts that have been done to get it to that point. And so it's nice to always say that, oh yeah, the chamber put in X amount of dollars to also help move this project forward. And we're able to count that as a part of it. Not just having them as our sponsor kind of thing.
Okay.
If we turn in the application early for review, is there an opportunity to resubmit that application again before the May 15th deadline?
Yeah, we can on our end
Re-release
it.
Okay.
So for facilities that are remodeling to expand the number of children they can have, would those construction, would we have to postpone that until we're awarded the grant then?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to use grant dollars.
Okay. And then what's the time frame for getting the work done after that? Is it the fiscal year?
No, we can go into on the capital dollars, and some of this will be shaped by us, because depending on what you tell us your capital dollars is, we might consider it operation actually. And our spend down on the operation is into 2024. Our spend down on capital is into 2026. So we've got some time, but not a ton of time. But yeah, it's not this fiscal year.
Okay.
When we're thinking of how we're submitting to for the review for the state fire marshal, is there a best way you would like us to do that? Of like, would you like us to group our, if we're submitting for multiple projects, is it best for us to kind of group those together and send those off as one? Would you like us to do those just as soon as possible to get those reviews back? Do you have any guidance on the best way to go about those?
So that you need to do that today or tomorrow. They will do a 30-day review period. So we're running up against that. So that is that's a real consideration. And in terms of how they want those, that's a question for the OSFM. But I had somebody contact me yesterday saying, hey, this is really going to be hard because it's a 30-day turnaround. Yes. And I think it is a portion of your application, but it is a portion of everybody's application. And so it is a competitive grant application. So I thank you for asking that question, Abby, because I did want to say, if you haven't gotten that off to the OSFM, please get that off to OSFM so that it's back and part of your application.
Okay.
We are already licensed through the KDHE, and we have had the space that we are currently in, which I'm going to call our old space, licensed, and we are active there right now, or could be. We will have to have an inspection when we move into our new facility. What do I need to get from the KDHE to provide to you under those facts? Is a copy of our license that they issued to us sufficient, or is there something else that they would need to give?
No, we're looking we're looking for KDHE to sign off on your new space, on your plans for your new space.
Okay.
And the thought there is, we want to know that at least with the information on the page today, that KDHE expects to be able to license that space, that's what we're committing money towards.
And they would just do that through a letter
Yes.
addressing that, or is there a, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And that's in the attachment list for the application.
Thank you.
To that point, just a reminder for everyone listening, if you're wondering what those things look like, we tried to put samples of every attachment that we are asking for in the application. So next to that field inside the application, on the application tab, you'll see example 1, example 2, hopefully, of the different attachments. So hopefully that helps you understand what we're looking for. But if there's still some confusion, definitely reach out. But we tried to make that as clear as possible while not telling you how to do things exactly. So.
Certainly, if something I've said is confusing or raises more questions, but you think, maybe I don't want to do this in front of everybody, submit a technical assistance request, or and you could even, as part of that technical assistance request, just ask for a phone call, and I'm happy to do that. Thanks for throwing that link up, Sarah. Other questions? We, at this point, this is our last scheduled webinar. Am I correct, Sarah? I think, if there's a sense from TA requests or from emails that another one is warranted, that's possible. We are entering very rapidly into the crunch time for those attachments, and so hope that everybody's had a chance to look through everything and plan accordingly. We do have 77 FAQs that are put up on the website in a single document. We want you to be successful. So anything I can do to answer questions or to provide guidance, we're excited to see good projects come forward. We're excited for this to be successful. This is one-time federal money, but to the degree that we're successful, it may show the need, may show what we can accomplish when we invest together. So really want this to be successful. Any further questions? I've got Sarah's in Lindsborg, which many of you know is where I spent 4 years of my career. So I'm eager for her to go get a coffee at the Blacksmith and then follow that up with a coffee at the White Peacock.
I've already done the Blacksmith. It's the Kansas Sampler Foundation Big Rural Brainstorm today. Childcare is on everyone's minds and in lots of conversations. But yes, I will make the other coffee on my way out for sure.
All right. thank you very much for your time today, and don't hesitate to reach out. Unless anybody have a final question before, I'm not trying to chase this off. I want to be respectful of your time. All right. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.